With the kickoff for Bills and Dolphins coming soon, it's time for some final thoughts, an injury update with banged up Bills, and of course, my prediction for Sunday. It's all coming your way today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino from the Draft Network, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Happy Friday to you, and thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day. And as a reminder to you, we are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Well, folks, we've got 3 segments coming your way today. We'll start off with some final thoughts that I want to give you to close out the week. And we're going to have a conversation with Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills about the injuries for Saturday night, and then my prediction for the game. Let's start with kind of catching up on a few newsy items here. The Bills made a few roster transactions this week, and obviously we know that Cole Beasley was signed to the practice squad. We'll talk about that in just a moment here. I have some additional thoughts like I promised you I would have today. We spoke on that earlier this week. I think it was Wednesday or Tuesday. I can't remember, but we talked about him initially, but I have some additional thoughts that I want to share today. But they also released defensive tackle CJ Brewer. They signed Brandon Bryant to the 53-man roster, and they released Marquez Stevenson from the practice squad. So they released Marquez Stevenson from the practice squad. That gives you the space to add Cole Beasley. And, you know, this does signal the end of Marquez Stevenson in Buffalo. He's already signed to the Browns practice squad. And so obviously some flashes, right? Maybe a couple of good returns, had the one long catch in preseason. But for the most part, his tenure in Buffalo is going to be remembered as him being injured, which is very similar to what happened in Houston. Wishing him all the best. He needs to stay healthy. Obviously, he has an appealing skill set, but can he be available? And I think that's kind of the question for Marquez Stevenson. And they moved on from him to be able to add Cole Beasley to the practice squad. And then on the active roster, they said goodbye to CJ Brewer. And I think a big reason why they did that was because Brandon Bryant became available. He had been with the Houston Texans, and he's a favorite of Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott. And once he became available as a player that's been around the team quite a bit over the last several years, I'm sure there was a lot more comfort with him than Brewer. And so Bryant is on the active roster, and I'm sure he's going to play on Saturday against the Dolphins and, in a rotational capacity, especially without Jordan Phillips in the lineup. He'll be the 4th defensive tackle. So those are your roster moves to kind of get caught up on that front. Now, let's talk a little bit more about Cole Beasley and what we've learned in the last couple of days. And we've heard from Sean McDermott. We've heard from Josh Allen. We've heard from Cole Beasley. We've heard from Brandon Beane. And so Cole came out and said that, look, he's been in contact with teammates since he's left. He's watched every game he's been dialed in with the team. So he's pretty aware of all the circumstances and has maintained relationships with his teammates. The reason he's in Buffalo, it sounds like, is that he reached out to Brandon Beane right after Thanksgiving and let him know, hey, look, I'm retired, but I'm willing to come out and play for you if you're interested in having me. And so Brandon Beane thought about it and then made the move to bring him onto the practice squad. And sounds like there was some very clear dialogue between the two about the circumstances and, hey, we've got to make this work from where we can get you. We can't get you on the 53, but I can get you on the practice squad. And that works out well because the Bills can call him up off the practice squad a few times. And then once they get to the playoffs, there's unlimited practice squad call-ups. So the Bills have a nice hedge here in Cole Beasley to be able to get him on the roster the rest of the way with some call-ups and then have no concern about that in the postseason. In fact, they have not ruled him out from playing on Saturday. And maybe that's somewhat aggressive, but if there's a player that can do it, it's him. I mean, John Brown did it a couple of weeks ago. Why couldn't Cole do it? especially with the amount of time on task that he does have with Josh Allen and what we've heard about the offense and some of the terminology and a lot of things being the same as they were in the past. You'd think it'd be a pretty seamless situation for him to step in. Now, I don't know that he's going to come in and get 10, 12 targets, and who knows what the elements are going to be like in terms of the ability to actually throw the football. But I think there's a world that we can live in that Cole Beasley dresses on Saturday night. As for Cole himself, I really appreciated his demeanor and just the way he conducted himself in the press conference that he had. And he admitted and said, hey, look, I didn't handle everything like I wanted to. And he said that's a big reason why he wanted to come back. He wanted to right some wrongs, be with his teammates, and get back to playing football. And I think that's pretty much what anybody should want. Any reasonable person should want that, both from Cole himself, but also as us being fans, that's the mindset that we would want him to have, because that's what we loved about Cole Beasley. We loved Cole Beasley and what he meant to the team, what he meant to the teammates, and what he was able to get done on the field. Where we moved off of Cole Beasley was when he became a distraction. Whether you agreed with him or not, it became a distraction. And then, of course, the way he left and some of the things that he said were not good. But this whole situation, to me, says a lot about the foundation and the culture in Buffalo, that a player like this can be welcomed back like he has. And not that other players left under bad terms, but it's been the year of guys coming back to the Bills, whether it's Matt Barkley or Dean Marlowe or A.J. Klein or, Jordan Phillips, Shaq Lawson. The list goes on and on. John Brown and Cole Beasley now. Says a lot about the foundation and culture in Buffalo. And just, I think, in listening to all of those people, McDermott, Beane, Cole, Josh Allen, I feel even better about things and where they stand from welcoming him back, it not being a distraction, and it being a net positive for the football team. And as we talked about earlier this week, the impact could be huge. This could be a huge move for this offense and for Josh Allen to have that guy back in his back pocket to help him stay on rhythm and, taking away targets, quite frankly, from Gabe Davis and from Isaiah McKenzie, who have been pretty inconsistent at times this year, and giving them back to a player that you have a better feel for what they're going to do with their opportunities. I mean, Josh Allen talked about concepts that they didn't feel comfortable running without Cole Beasley because it requires that slot player to be able to read and adjust on the fly in terms of processing coverage and getting to spots and being on the same page with Josh Allen and seeing things the same way. That was something that was really interesting to me about some of the comments that Beane and McDermott made, was just commenting on how Josh and Cole just see it in a very unique, similar way. And that allows them to be effective together. So the opportunity cost here is nothing. The chance that it could have a huge impact on the team is considerable. And I just like this move. I do. I think this is a skill set that this team has been missing on offense, and I think it'll help it take a step. I really do. At a very important time. You start to wonder and ask yourself, well, what can be different the rest of the way for us to feel better about this offense to be able to go and win these games down the stretch? Well, I mean, this is a jolt for me, right? Cole Beasley. Instead of counting on Josh to feel more confident, or for the O-line to play better, or for Gabe Davis's ankle to be better and him to be more effective, and for Isaiah McKenzie to stop dropping the football, and for James Cook to settle in. Like, you don't have to hope for any of that. The only thing you have to hope for now is that Cole Beasley can hit the ground running like he has the past 2 years. So I like it. The last thing I want to mention here in this opening segment is just a few thoughts on Kaiir Elam. That's been a major topic, at least in terms of emails and DMs that I've been getting, and I've spoken about it a little bit on the podcast. But the beat reporters did a good job this week of asking questions about Kaiir Elam to Sean McDermott, and even when Brandon Beane spoke to the media this week. And I thought there was two quotes in particular that were pretty revealing to me. One came from Sean McDermott, one came from Brandon Beane. The one from Sean McDermott was he was complimenting Kaiir Elam, but I thought at the same time he was giving us a little bit of insight into the situation. He said, Kaiir Elam continues to work hard and make sure that he's learning the techniques that we want used and utilized in certain schemes that we run. He's working hard and learning the techniques that we want used and utilized in certain schemes that we run. That's significant to me. This feeds into a lot of the speculation that I've had about, hey, this is a press man corner from college that's acclimating to his zone defense. And every team is going to do it just a little bit different. And the techniques that they ask you to play with, whether it's leverage or a read step or just the spacing and landmarks and when to pass off routes and all those types of things that go into it, that was a signal to me from Sean McDermott that, hey, he's still getting to the point where he's comfortable with the techniques that we want him used, and we're comfortable with him utilizing them. Brandon Beane said, outside of quarterback, QB, cornerback, CB is the hardest position to play as a rookie. I don't know if I agree with him on that, but that's Brandon Beane's comment. And he talked about all of the moving parts in the secondary this year and how that's challenging for a young player to be able to stabilize himself within that. One of my favorite talking points over the last several years about the Bills defense in the offseason has been, think about this back seven: Taron Johnson, Tremaine Edmonds, Matt Milano, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Tre'Davious White, and at the time, Levi Wallace. And I would always say those guys have like 4 years together repping and playing together. They know where everyone's going to be. They've seen all the concepts. They know how to play together. And it's been such a consistent thing that happened for a long stretch of time. And this year, it ain't that. Milano and Edmonds have been in and out of the lineup. Trey White just got back. Micah Hyde's been gone since the Tennessee game. Poyer's missed time. Dane Jackson's missed time. Christian Benford's been IR. Kaiir Elam has been hurt. Like, there's been no ability for any of that to be stable and develop the chemistry that you had in the past. And it's not just because you let Levi Wallace go. The guys you thought you had, they've been hurt. And so when you couple McDermott's comments about, okay, learning the techniques and utilizing them, how we want them used in each scheme, and you hear Brandon Beane talk about how it's hard to play cornerback as a rookie with an emphasis on the moving parts, I think you got your answer. I think you have your answer as to why Kaiir Elam has not been a big part of the equation recently, and instead it's been veterans that they trust, whether that's seeing what they have in Xavier Rhodes like they told us they were, or Dane Jackson, who's in year 3 with this team. There's just more trust there. And that doesn't mean that Kaiir Elam can't become a quality starting cornerback for the Buffalo Bills. It doesn't mean that. It just means that right now, under these circumstances, it's hard for him to do that. I think it's less to do with Elam and more to do about the circumstances and developing trust in Elam to execute how they want him to do it. This regime has told us from literally day one that they want players that they trust in spots, right? That's why they went and brought in all those old Carolina Panthers players. That's why they're bringing back all these ex-Bills players. That's why they're leaning into a Dane Jackson over a Kaiir Elam right now. Despite when we watch the tape on Kaiir Elam, you say, he looks good to me. Well, that's because we don't know exactly what they're asking him to do. Well, yeah, he's staying connected in coverage. All right, well, is he playing with the exact techniques that they want him to do? I think that's your answer. And it's just going to take a little bit more time. But I'm still very optimistic about Kaiir Elam and Tre'Davious White being a quality, high-impact starting cornerback duo It just might be next year. And that's okay. This episode is brought to you by Tommy John. Don't make your loved ones face the dead of winter in old t-shirts, ancient underwear, and ratty sweats. Help them fight cold with Cozy and give the gift of Tommy John. Shop Tommy John's Wrap It Up sale right now and give the gift of comfort to everyone on your list, including yourself, with new Tommy John underwear, loungewear, and pajamas. With over 18 million pairs sold, giving Tommy John has become a holiday tradition. In fact, 97% of women and men love getting a gift from Tommy John. That's why Tommy John doesn't have customers, they have fanatics. Every gift is backed by Tommy John's best pair you'll ever wear, or it's free guarantee. So hurry to Tommy John's Wrap It Up sale and get 30% off everything, plus free shipping at TommyJohn.com/lockedon. Order now so your gift arrives before the holidays. That's 30% off plus free shipping at TommyJohn.com/lockedon. TommyJohn.com/lockedon. See site for details. I'm joined now by Kyle Trimble. He's a doctor of physical therapy. He runs bangedupbills.com. The Twitter handle is @bangedupbills, and he joins us every week to talk injuries ahead of the Bills' coming game. And Kyle, we finally don't have that much to talk about. Only two players with a designation. They're both ruled out. And of course, I want to get some insight from you on those two players and kind of what the timetable is for them. But where I want to start this conversation today is just looking at the injury report in general. I'm sure that Bills fans are very used to looking at the report on a daily basis that the team puts out. And while there's only two players with a game day designation, there are, 10, 12 players actually listed on here. And so I know that you've gained some recent information on why the report looks the way that it does. And so let's start there. Educate us on that.
So Sal Capaccio, WGR, he seems to know everything. He's been a big person who I've gotten a lot of information from, learned a lot from over the years. So Sal, if you're listening, thank you. But he put out this nugget one day ago. Somebody had asked about the names on the injury report, why guys are still full despite being on the injury report. He had said, if a player appears on the injury report, but is listed as a full participant, that means they're getting treatment on that injury or / ailment, but they are still able to do and participate 100% of the normal reps and work that they would normally do. So that's important to note because we see Josh Allen still on here with his right elbow injury. We see Mitch Morse on here with his right elbow injury. Cam Lewis has a chronic bone infection in his forearm. I don't know what type of treatment he gets for that, but that's why he's still on there. But that's why we see guys maybe linger a little bit longer than I don't know that they should, but that really kind of helps fill in the gap of why we see so many names on the report, even though they practice in full. So I certainly learned something from that. And those that aren't on Twitter, hopefully you can better understand why the injury report looks like the way it does.
So two players here are ruled out. And one of them is starting right guard, Ryan Bates, who he left the last game, didn't finish. Greg Van Roten came in and played, but he's got an ankle injury here, which it feels like that's the new hot injury for Bills players, is ankles. What do you know about Ryan Bates, and what do you think the timetable here is?
So Bates, he suffered a right ankle injury on the Josh Allen run midway through the game. He was seen hobbling off with the training staff and then didn't return. Like you said, Greg Van Roten came in to finish the game there. So by video, and it was really weird, the broadcast view make it look like he injured his left ankle, but then there's a view from Brian Baldinger, who had more of the Madden view, and his right ankle actually got rolled up on. I can't remember if it was friendly fire or if it was from a Jets player, but his right ankle got rolled up on to looked like a high ankle sprain. I was concerned with that, but that Jeremy Fowler of ESPN had said that they dodged a bullet, that he suffered a low ankle sprain. So how I look at it is if he had the mechanism for a high ankle sprain, but it's a low ankle sprain, then that kind of narrows it down to a medial ankle sprain, which is something we don't see too often, but it can happen. What this is an injury to the deltoid ligament, which is the inside portion of the ankle where it connects with the tibia and the foot, most of the bones in there. And it's a pretty strong ligament, but still, like any other part of your body, can be injured. So he's out this week. I'm sure they're trying to get things right in there. It stands to reason he could return next week, especially against the Bears. But I'd expect that, but I could also see him saying, hey, it's the Bears. Let's get you right for the playoff run. They've also talked about Ike Bacher coming back in some fashion, so he could be another body to put in there and get him reps as they go on. So I'd expect Bates next week, if not the next week thereafter, especially for Cincinnati. You could have him be closer to 100%.
The other player that's not going to be available on Saturday night is Jordan Phillips, which, man, you kind of wanted to see him against his former team. He's going to miss the second Dolphins game this year. He's kind of had some injuries all season long. This time it's a shoulder that's keeping him out. You think we'll see him sooner rather than later, or is this going to linger?
It's an injury that will linger. To recap what happened, he fell down trying to chase Mac Jones with like 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter in week 13, and he just fell flat in his face, and his shoulder, his right arm outstretched. So I was hoping AC joint sprain, putting that at the universe, but the mechanism, fit a shoulder instability, which is what we see with a shoulder subluxation dislocation. The camera panned away, so we didn't see, how it was, but the fact that he was in a sling after the game, despite him saying he was all right, leads to probably more of a dislocation, unfortunately. And the research shows you be anywhere from 0 to 3 weeks. We've seen guys play through these injuries before. Zay Jones in his rookie year had that injury, and he played through that. We also saw Teron Johnson play through that in his rookie year in 2018. So it's going to be a position-specific return to play. So, playing wide receiver, cornerback, those are different demands. Maybe could lead to a shorter time frame to return back, but playing defensive tackle with your arms straight out like that all the time, a lot of force coming through the shoulders, lends to him being out a little bit longer. The hope is that he starts practicing next week and with a shoulder harness like we saw with Ed Oliver on video this week, and him coming back in some fashion. But I could also see him saying, hey, we have the time to sit you out as long as we need to, get you right for the playoffs. They do have the depth there for that reason. So I can see potentially come back next week, but almost say, let's keep you on next week for Cincinnati, because that's when we really need you.
Well, it's about time we finally had more of a lighter load of things to discuss here, Dr. Kyle Trimble. Let's keep our fingers crossed that we can have another brief conversation next week. But as always, we do appreciate you making yourself available and sharing your expertise.
Thank you.
This holiday season, find what you love at Total Wine & More. With so many great bottles to choose from, it's easy to find a new favorite Cabernet or Chardonnay, or the perfect gifts for everyone on your list with some help from a friendly guide. And all that with the confidence of knowing you found something special for the lowest price. Love what you find only at Total Wine & More. Curbside pickup and delivery available in most areas. Visit TotalWine.com to learn more. Drink responsibly. Be 21. All right, folks, it's prediction time here on the podcast. Typically, I give you 5 predictions about the game. Here's the deal. I don't know how to do that under these circumstances, given we could be looking at a significant amount of snow accumulation during the game. And that really makes it hard for me to say with specificity exact things that I think will happen in the game in terms of the predictions I normally give you. Yesterday on the podcast, I shared with you that I thought the Bills were going to win this game. And so what I want to do here is talk a little bit more about the advantages that the Bills have and why I think the Bills improve to 11-3 on Saturday night and clinch a postseason berth for the 4th year in a row. Number 1, Josh Allen, and specifically Josh Allen versus Tua. And this isn't a slander session for Tua. That's not my objective here. My objective here is to amplify and elevate Josh Allen as the quarterback you want to have in this game. Not only does Josh Allen from his time at Wyoming and his time in Buffalo have significantly more experience in cold weather games that have elements, but the running element here could be really significant. Where Josh Allen as a rushing threat can really help this Bills offense in a game like this way more than a guy like Tua is going to be able to offer for his football team. And I think about the Falcons game last year where, hey, Josh didn't throw the ball well in that game at all, but his legs were really, really important. And I think you can see some of those dynamics this year. And so, of course, I think Josh Allen's a better quarterback than Tua, But I think even more so in a game like this, you're happy that you have the 6'5", 240-pound alien with a rocket launcher for a right arm and is a really, really, really skilled runner with the football. His skill set plays way more favorably into these elements. So right there, that's, to me, the most significant talking point. The next talking point I want to get into is just that the Bills have a much better rushing offense than Miami. The Bills this year are 14th in attempts, 8th in yards, 4th in yards per attempt. They've had 100 rushing yards in every single game. The Miami Dolphins are reluctant to even run the football. They're 31st in attempts, 29th in yards, and 25th in yards per attempt. They're an objectively bad rushing offense. And part of that is just because there's no commitment to doing it. And so that's a big deal in a game like this because you're going to have to run the ball. And Dolphins fans will tell you they ran the ball well against Cleveland. So did everybody. Congratulations. Why didn't you run the ball well against the Chargers when they had 7 defensive starters out and can't stop anybody? Why did you not run the ball more than 8 times in a close game against the 49ers? It's not part of their formula right now. Can it be? Maybe, but we hadn't seen that outside of one game from them. And then, Jeff Wilson, who I think is absolutely critical for them at running back, he's questionable for the game, and he was carted off with a hip injury last week. I mean, even if he plays, what's his effectiveness? So Josh Allen, number 2, the Bills have a better rushing offense by a lot. Number 3 is that weather mitigates Miami more than Buffalo. And that's not just because Miami's in South Florida and it's like 80 degrees there, and the Bills should be more acclimated to being able to play football in these elements because they live there. They've been in it. They're practicing outside. It's cold, right? They're going to be well equipped to play there because of geography. But more than that, the style of play that Miami has on offense is way more mitigated than Buffalo. That reluctance to run the football and that reliance on the vertical passing game is a tough way to not only sustain your success as a football team, but have that recipe, have that script show up in a game like this. The things that have made the Miami Dolphins successful this year are going to be really difficult to deploy on Saturday if there's going to be elements. So not only do I feel some level of comfort about the Bills and the scheme and being able to handle what Miami offers offensively in regular circumstances, the fact that they also have the weather working against them is a big deal. The weather mitigates Miami way more than Buffalo. We know that the Bills prefer to throw the football, but they've also been a good rushing offense this year, especially lately. That style of play for Miami is mitigated way more than the Bills in a game like this, even when you take away geography. Number 4, the Bills have a better defense. They have a better defense than the Miami Dolphins. In any way that you want to spin it, pass defense, takeaways, rush defense, they're better. And I think the Bills have an advantage at kicker and punter. And that's an X factor in a game like this, particularly cold, windy elements. The Dolphins kicker is Jason Sanders. He's had 2 bad years in a row. He was awesome 3 years ago, 2 bad years in a row. Played his college ball at New Mexico. He's been a kicker in the NFL for the Dolphins. Probably not a whole lot of experience kicking in games like this. Thomas Morstead's an awesome punter. Awesome punter. 217 career games, 190 of them with the Saints, Dome, NFC South, 13 with the Dolphins, South Florida. He played 7 games with the Jets. He grew up in Texas and played college football at SMU, which is in the Dallas area. Tyler Bass and Sam Martin. Sam Martin kicked for the Broncos. I just feel like from a specialist perspective, they're just going to be a lot more equipped to handle this, a lot more experience handling this. It's not going to be easy for anybody. And I think Sean McDermott made a good point this week. It's not like we're outside playing and practicing in a foot of snow every day. But I think they're just going to be a lot more equipped to handle this type of a ball game. And the Dolphins have been really interesting to monitor this week with the comments that they're making. You know, Tua's talking about how he went outside and threw a football when it was snowing, when there was snow on the ground in Maryland, and it felt good and it felt normal. And he said it snows in Alabama too. Okay, bud. Mike McDaniel talking about, you know, not letting the cold get in their heads, and he's got the shirt on that he says it, you know, I wish it were colder, and they're pumping air conditioner into their indoor facility that's around 50 to 60 degrees. I don't know. It feels like it's been kind of corny. Like, why don't you just say, yeah, you know what? The elements are going to be a big challenge for our football team, but we can't let it become a distraction, and we have to be able to execute regardless of what the elements are. Both teams have to deal with it. Say that and move on. But instead, it feels like it's this emphasis, but not an emphasis, with weird comments about the whole thing. Folks, there's going to be snow. It's going to be cold, and you need to be able to play a style of game that is conducive for it. And I'm sure the reality versus the messaging to the media and fans is different. I get that. But obviously you like that advantage for Buffalo. And my gosh, you'd hate for it to not be an advantage. You'd hate for me to say all these things and for, you know, all these thoughts that we have, and then for the Dolphins to come into town and beat you in your backyard with these under these circumstances, right? That's not great. You don't want that. And so the Bills need to meet this moment. Obviously, they win, they clinch a playoff berth. They win, they remain in control of their own destiny in the AFC. And so there's a lot on the line. And obviously, you don't want to give the Dolphins any belief that they can win this division. You want this to be your division for a third consecutive year. It's right there in front of you. You win this game, you're going to be in the driver's seat. I mean, you're already in the driver's seat, but you're really going to be in the driver's seat if you win this one to clinch a division very soon. So I think the Bills win, and that's why. Real quick, a couple of games of note to be mindful of on Sunday. The Chiefs and Bengals are two teams we'll be monitoring very closely as the Bills are trying to get that 1 seed. Well, I don't think the Chiefs are going to fall at all on Sunday. They play the Texans on the road at 1 o'clock. I expect them to destroy the Texans. And then the Bengals have a tough one. They're at the Bucs, 4:25 on Sunday. And, you know, I know the Bucs aren't having a great year. And I think the Bengals probably should win the game. But they're going to be shorthanded. They don't have Trey Hendrickson, one of their best defensive linemen. Boyd and Higgins at receiver won't be available. And the Bucs are coming off of a very embarrassing performance against San Francisco. And look, the Bucs can still win that division. They're still in first place in that division. And so they can get to the postseason, and Tom Brady's their quarterback. I think they're going to bounce back and play well. Now, do they have enough to beat Cincinnati? I don't know, but I think there's a reasonable chance. And you'd like to have a Bucs win here to just give yourself as much wiggle room as possible, especially because Chiefs ain't losing the Texans. That ain't going to happen. So just something else to keep your attention on this weekend as you watch football, and hopefully you're watching those games after a Buffalo Bills win on Saturday night. So the hay is in the barn. We've done all that we're going to do here on this podcast to get ready for the game. Now it's just up to the Bills to go home and take care of their business and get this win, get this 11th win of the season. And let's have a Victory Sunday podcast the next time that we speak. So that's it for today. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. I'll catch up with you after the game. We'll stay up late on Saturday, get the podcast recorded for you, and have that ready for you when you wake up on Sunday morning. So go Bills, and I'm looking forward to a Victory Sunday podcast coming your way very, very soon.